enemy, and we should not be dependent on
them. But no, they are not our enemy. They're our biggest trading partner. And if we manufacture,
you got fired from your job.
You can agitate.
Well, it finally happened. Someone on national television really just said China is not our enemy because iPhones. I'm not kidding. That was really the justification. Just go ahead, sit down, relax, and enjoy because you're not even going to believe what you're about to hear. And by the way, a little later in the video, Scott Jennings has one of his biggest mic drop moments I have ever seen ever since I've been covering Scott Jennings. Here we go.
The trade, honestly, the trade is asymmetrical.
And who voted for Donald Trump?
Precisely. Trade is asymmetrical with China. We imported over 439 billion products from China. We exported over 140 billion from China. Their own foreign ministry has said, we will not flinch. We will not genuflect to a bullying government. I respectfully disagree.
Though, Tiffany, that we rely so much on an adversary to make most of our goods?
Listen, whether it bothers me or not is irrelevant. I'm dealing with reality.
Important, though.
It is important, but this is what it is.
Why does it have to be the reality that we are dependent on so many things to come out of our biggest adversary in the world? They are the enemy, and we should not be dependent on them.
But no, they are not our enemy. They're our biggest trading partner. And if we
earth minerals and you don't.
They're the enemy.
Right. But listen, but like it or not, sure, Michael, they are our biggest trading partner. And if we were to manufacture iPhones here, iPhones would cost $3,500. The American people are not going to tolerate that.
I told you I was not kidding. She is justifying that, you know what, Americans won't be happy with how expensive iPhones are. If you guys remember, let's take a blast into the past. Do you guys remember that woman on CNN who justified the cheap labor in the fields because women won't be happy with how expensive their blueberry shakes are? This is literally pretty much the same exact justification. She is okay with the cheap labor in China because you know what? iPhones. However, Scott Jennings has a very funny response. And again, I promise, after this clip, you're not even going to believe how intense it gets for Scott Jennings once again.
We have one of the highest standards of working conditions here. I don't think that we can say, forget you, China. They literally.
Okay. So you're okay. Hold on, Sir Michael. So you're okay. You're okay if we continue to put our own economic and national security future in the hands of our biggest enemy because effectively they use slave labor to build stuff, and that makes it better for us. That is terrible.
I am 100% not okay with that, but I'm dealing in the reality of what is.
Do you want to change it?
But we need to.
I absolutely want to change it. I don't know that changing it means isolating us on the global stage.
So what happens?
With these
Tiffany,
tariffs
if I could ask, what happens if we ever have a military conflict with China, and they say, you know what, we're going to put an embargo on anything shipping to the United States?
Is she watching the same news that we're watching? Like, I am so confused. Is she just taking the opposite response because she's on TV to be the Democrat and oppose Donald Trump? Literally, there are so many countries lining up. They are all working together. And only 12 hours ago, even Australia said, nah, China, we're not working with you. And China was willing to have an exclusive deal with Australia. So these countries are not isolating the United States. The U.S. is not isolated. You can even check out the stock market. It's reflecting this isolation. It's doing pretty well. Again, absolutely insane talking points to throw all of those people under the bus in China because iPhone. However, it gets even more intense.
Land. You cannot just go and say, I like it, it's mine now. It doesn't work that way. Well, that is what they're trying to do. And in this new world order, yeah, absolutely. When they're looking at Greenland and say, I like it, I want to take it for mine, that is a very colonized.
You have said you are.
I have never ever said we're going to go to Greenland and quote colonize it or steal it.
You're not a member of government, so you're irrelevant at that point. I'm talking about the president of the United States doing that.
You got fired from your job.
You can agitate.
If you want to engage in personal insults,
I don't, but you do.
Okay, leave your comments down below where the personal insults started. Was it with this young woman right here where she said Scott Jennings is irrelevant because he's not in the government? Or was it when Scott Jennings responded and said, well, you got fired, so how relevant are you? Again, the context is within. Apparently, the U.S. government is trying to colonize Greenland. We've heard these talking points. These are very, very old talking points. I think she might be stuck in 2014. No one, absolutely no one. I cannot find a counter clip or cross correlation. I cannot even find an article where people are legitimately saying we are trying to colonize Greenland. This is insanity. I don't know why she's allowed on CNN, and this is why Scott Jennings is like, this is ridiculous.
Lack in a legitimate point, you make up for it in personal personal insults. The point I am making is in this new world order, we are looking at countries, whether or not they're an adversary or ally, it is being determined on what kind of deal we can get. And we cannot govern, we cannot legislate that way. We are increasingly isolated on the world stage.
No, we're not.
So if you want to engage in personal insults,
we're not
if I were you, I would reserve that for your party, who is increasingly isolated.
What is this isolation? This is not 1945 isolationism where we don't want to get involved with the rest of the world. We are so involved with the world that, as you can see, we made one move. Donald Trump said, all right, the deals are off, and the whole world economy literally crashed. Does that sound like isolationism, or does that sound like the strongest economy in the world and everybody relies on us? There are countries where their GDP is 1/3 of their economy. Without us, their economies crash. So again, no idea where the isolationism talk is coming from, but the main point of this clip is the ad hominem is ridiculous, and then trying to say, well, you're a colonizer and you flipped it, and you're irrelevant, and that's why Scott Jennings said, well, you got fired.
The end result needs to be, can we level set with many of our trading partners and decrease the trade deficits that ultimately exist? If we can do that, I think that's a win. As it pertains to corporate America, I think once we pass corporate tax cuts or renew the Trump tax cuts, I think we'll see a significant amount of that wealth return in the next couple of weeks or 2-3 months. I think corporate America will be perfectly fine, and then we'll move on. The focus does need to be on China. I mean, Scott's right. They steal our IP and sell it back to us. I don't know any country in the world who would give their ideas away for free and then buy the ideas back. We have to figure out a way to protect American.
You guys have to understand, and I know most of you are way more intelligent than I am, and you know exactly what's going on. At the end of the day, China is this country that's always played we're a developing country. Look at all of our people. You know, we still have dirt roads in most of our countries. We're still developing. We're still learning how to be a country. Absolutely hogwash. They are literally the only country who gets away with everything they get away with because, first off, they're a powerful country. They could crush individual markets if they want to. The only reason why anything is working out right now is because the United States forced every single country to go down together and not allow for any other countries to try and fight China alone. You can only beat China on a united front. And again, the point is China has always gotten away with stealing IP and these other weird things they get away with.
Businesses and entrepreneurs, and we haven't figured that out in the past couple of years now. So I think there's some benefit to the American people and businesses by focusing the attention on China.
I think everybody agrees.
And I'm going to play you guys a clip from Shark Tank's Kevin O'Leary where he talks about it straight up and gives the details what exactly China is doing. In fact, he is calling for 400% tariffs to absolutely crush and force the Chinese leadership to come out of their hiding and actually talk about what they've been doing, because on the world global economic scale, it's enough. China takes advantage of everyone and their own people.
104% tariffs on China are not enough. I'm advocating 400%. I do business in China. They don't play by the rules. They've been in the WTO for decades. They have never abided by any of the rules they agreed to when they came in for decades. They cheat, they steal IP. I can't litigate in their courts. They take product, technology, they steal it, they manufacture it, sell it back here. Never has an administration
400% tariffs. What would that look like?
I want Xi on an airplane to Washington to level the playing field. It's just
okay, I want to stop right here. Republicans need to do a better job of elevating these stories and talking points. Get CEOs, get entrepreneurs on the congressional floor, blast out these media clips, get them on national television, let everybody know what is actually going on in China. Now, I know what a lot of you are saying. Look, probably a lot of these CEOs don't even care because they're making so much money. But for the CEOs who do care, we need these stories out there that the United States is getting screwed over. And you'll see 400%, that's insane. That's the point. You'll notice that you never see Chinese leadership as far as their president or their supreme leaders, whatever you want to call them nowadays. You never see them. You only hear of their economic strategist or their secretary of the treasury or secretary of this, but you never see their actual top leadership come out and make statements. They're in hiding right now, and that is why Kevin O'Leary is saying, get get them on a plane, force them in the United States, force them to come out of their hiding.
It's not about tariffs anymore. Nobody has taken on China yet, not the Europeans, no administration for decades. As someone who actually does business there, I've had enough. I speak for millions of Americans who have IP that have been stolen by the Chinese. I have nothing against the Chinese people. They brought great literacy, art, and tech to the world. The government cheats and steals, and finally, an administration, you may not like Trump, you may not like his style or his rhetoric, finally, an administration that puts up and says enough. 400% tariffs tomorrow morning. He'll tell you why. She can only stay the supreme leader if people are employed. If we wipe out any business there, because we are still 39% of all consumables on Earth and 25% of the world's GDP, America is the #1 economy on Earth with all the cards. We will not have that forever. It's time to squeeze Chinese heads into the wall now.
Okay, so the point he's making, in case you don't know the details, you saw that Xi can only be the supreme leader if people are working. How does that make sense? Well, China works together like one massive cogwheel. Essentially, you have these privately owned companies, but in reality, China owns 51% of every single company in China. So if people are not working, then who's to blame? The supreme leader. That is why we are not seeing the Chinese stock market necessarily crash. You are seeing the Chinese stock market go up, go down, go up, go down. This is because China has the ability to inflate their markets and to use their own money to inject into these private businesses, because again, China owns all businesses, not just the majority, all businesses in China. That is why Kevin O'Leary is saying, look, if you crash and go after the average worker, China actually falls altogether.
Well, hold on a second, Kevin. Well, I hear you, but hold on. If we're talking about people, the average consumer, not necessarily the head honchos of businesses all across the globe, can they withstand the pressure of that sort of tax on the goods?
It's short-lived. There will be
but what's your timeline compared to, you don't know the average American's timeline, what they can actually survive. There's people right now who can't survive
400% tomorrow morning, cheese on an airplane to Washington to cut a deal.
Yeah, that's a very, very high amount. And look, I'm not about to sit here and like giggle and laugh at the idea that a regular American won't suffer. They will, so that's actually not like a laughing matter, but that is why Kevin O'Leary is saying, you gotta go all in, you gotta go 400%. China's only counter at this point is TikTok and Temu. That is like their biggest counters right now. And at the end of the day, when it comes to survivability and when it comes to the United States, we could survive without Temu and TikTok. And I'm not even trying to be smart here. TikTok is pretty much off the table right now. And we know a lot of young people are going to be upset. I might be a little upset. Sometimes I dabble on TikTok. I will lose money when there's no TikTok. But for the greater good of the United States and for the working people and for those cheap labor workers in China, I think this is for the better of the country. You guys let me know how you feel about that.